Deep within the Nevada desert, far from crowded cities, beyond miles of empty highways, lies one of the most heavily guarded places on Earth, a place surrounded by warning signs, motion sensors, security cameras, armed patrols, and an airspace so restricted that even experienced pilots know better than to come close. For decades, the United States government refused to admit this place even existed. No maps acknowledged it, no official records mentioned it, and anyone who worked there was sworn to absolute secrecy. Yet despite the silence, stories began to spread, stories of strange lights moving across the desert sky. Experimental aircraft unlike anything the world had ever seen. Whistleblowers claiming to have worked on technology that defied the laws of physics. And perhaps the most extraordinary claim of all, that somewhere inside this isolated military base, the United States was hiding evidence of extraterrestrial life. Some believed crashed alien spacecraft had been secretly transported here. Others claimed that recovered UFO technology was being reverse-engineered inside underground laboratories. There were even rumors that living extraterrestrials were being studied behind locked doors. To millions of people, Area 51 became more than a military installation. It became the center of the greatest conspiracy theory in modern history. But legends are often born where information is scarce, and nowhere has information been more tightly controlled than Area 51. Was it really the world's most secret alien research facility? Or was there another explanation hidden behind decades of government secrecy tonight? We separate fact from fiction. We'll uncover the true history of Area 51. Explore the Cold War that gave birth to it. Reveal the secret aircraft developed within its borders. Examine the UFO stories that captured the world's imagination and discover why, after more than 70 years, Area 51 remains one of the most mysterious places on Earth. Because sometimes, the greatest secrets aren't hidden underground. They're hidden in plain sight. If you search for Area 51 on a modern map, you'll find it in the heart of southern Nevada, surrounded by rugged mountains, dry lake beds, and hundreds of miles of unforgiving desert. At first glance, it appears to be nothing more than another remote military installation. But appearances can be deceiving. Area 51 sits within the vast Nevada Test and Training Range, one of the largest restricted military zones in the world. The base itself is built beside Groom Lake, a dry lake bed whose perfectly flat surface made it an ideal location for testing experimental aircraft. Its isolation was no accident. The nearest major city, Las Vegas, lies more than 100 kilometers away. Beyond that, there is almost nothing. No neighborhoods, no businesses, no curious tourists wandering too close. Only endless desert, stretching toward the horizon. The roads leading to Area 51 are lined with unmistakable warning signs. Restricted area. No trespassing. Use of deadly force authorized. For anyone tempted to ignore those warnings, the consequences can be immediate. Security patrols monitor the perimeter around the clock. High-powered cameras scan the surrounding hills. Motion sensors detect movement long before anyone reaches the fence. Unmarked white pickup trucks often appear without warning. The men inside, known by enthusiasts as the camo dudes, rarely speak. They simply watch and ensure that no one crosses the boundary. Even the skies above the base are protected. The restricted airspace surrounding Area 51 is among the most tightly controlled anywhere on Earth. Commercial aircraft avoid it completely. military pilots require special authorization. A single navigation error could trigger an immediate response. Such extraordinary security naturally raises an important question. What could possibly require this level of protection? For decades, the answer remained hidden. The government refused to acknowledge the base. Officially, it didn't exist. But satellites orbiting hundreds of kilometers above the Earth eventually changed that. By the late 20th century, commercial satellite imagery had revealed long runways, large hangars, fuel storage facilities, and a sprawling complex hidden deep within the desert. The mystery only grew. If the government denied the base existed, why could the entire world see it from space? The answer lies not with aliens, but with history. Because Area 51 wasn't built to study visitors from another planet. It was created during one of the most dangerous periods in human history, a time when two superpowers stood on the brink of nuclear war. A conflict fought not only with weapons, but with secrets. And those secrets would give birth to Area 51. To understand Area 51, we have to travel back to a time when the world stood on the edge of catastrophe. The year was 1945. The Second World War had come to an end, but peace would not last for long. A new conflict was already beginning, not one fought with armies marching across continents, but with spies, technology, and nuclear weapons. It became known as the Cold War. On one side stood the United States, on the other, the Soviet Union. Both nations possessed weapons capable of destroying the world many times over, yet neither side truly knew what the other was planning. The greatest weapon wasn't a bomb, it was information. Knowing where enemy missiles were located, how many bombers they possessed, or whether they were preparing for war, could mean the difference between survival and total destruction. But gathering that information presented an enormous challenge. Satellites didn't yet exist. Long-range surveillance drones were decades away. Traditional reconnaissance aircraft couldn't fly high enough to avoid enemy defenses. The United States needed something revolutionary. An aircraft capable of flying so high that no Soviet fighter and no missile could reach it. It sounded impossible, but one man believed it could be done. His name was Clarence Kelly Johnson. Johnson was the brilliant chief engineer at Lockheed's Skunk Works, a secret division responsible for designing some of the most advanced aircraft in history. He proposed an aircraft unlike anything the world had ever seen. Lightweight, extremely powerful, capable of flying above 70,000 feet. At that altitude, it would be virtually untouchable. The project received the code name. The Central Intelligence Agency, better known as the CIA, immediately recognized its potential. But building such an aircraft required absolute secrecy. It couldn't be tested at a normal military base. Too many people would see it. Too many questions would be asked. The CIA began searching for a location hidden from public view, somewhere isolated, somewhere inaccessible, somewhere the world would never think to look. Eventually, they found exactly what they needed. Deep inside the Nevada desert, they discovered an abandoned airfield beside a dry lake known as Groom Lake, surrounded by rugged mountains, miles from the nearest town. The location was almost perfect. The dry lake bed provided a naturally flat runway. The surrounding mountains shielded the area from curious eyes, and the desert offered endless empty skies for flight testing. Construction began in 1955. Within weeks, temporary buildings appeared, barracks, hangars, fuel storage tanks, a control tower. What started as a small testing site would soon become one of the most secretive military facilities ever built. Officially, the base had no name. Inside classified documents, it was referred to only by code numbers. Eventually, employees began calling it Area 51. Life inside the base was unlike anything most Americans could imagine. Workers disappeared from public view for days at a time. Many flew to the base aboard unmarked passenger aircraft departing from Las Vegas. The airline had no public schedule, no advertisements, no company logo. Today, aviation enthusiasts know these mysterious aircraft as Janet Airlines. Even now, they continue transporting employees between Las Vegas and Area 51 every working day. Passengers rarely discuss what happens after landing. Most have signed strict confidentiality agreements. Many spend entire careers working on projects they can never discuss, even with their own families. During the early years, security reached extraordinary levels. Workers used code names. Documents were tightly controlled. Photography was strictly forbidden. Conversations about the project outside the base were prohibited. Even nearby military personnel often had no idea what was happening just a few miles away. Then, something unexpected happened. As the first U-2 aircraft began flying over the Nevada desert, people started seeing them. Commercial airliners in the 1950s typically cruised below 20,000 feet. The U-2 flew more than 3 times higher. Its polished wings reflected sunlight long after sunset. To pilots and people on the ground, it appeared as a brilliant object gliding silently across the evening sky. Many had never seen anything like it. Reports flooded local authorities. Witnesses described glowing discs, silent aircraft, objects moving impossibly high above the earth. Some believed they were seeing visitors from another world. In reality, they were watching one of America's most closely guarded military secrets. The government couldn't reveal the truth. Doing so would expose the existence of the U-2 program. Instead, officials simply refused to comment. And that silence created something far more powerful than any aircraft. It created mystery. Because when governments refuse to explain what people are seeing, people create their own explanations. The first UFO rumors surrounding Area 51 had begun, but the U-2 was only the beginning. Over the next several decades, even more advanced aircraft would take to the skies above Groom Lake. Aircraft so revolutionary that many witnesses became convinced they could not have been built by human hands. Stealth technology, hypersonic research, aircraft invisible to radar. Each new project pushed engineering beyond what most people believed possible, and with every secret test flight, the legend of Area 51 grew stronger, because sometimes the greatest conspiracies aren't created by lies, they're created by secrets. By the late 1950s, Area 51 had already become one of America's most closely guarded secrets. The success of the U-2 spy plane had given the United States an enormous intelligence advantage during the Cold War, flying at altitudes previously thought impossible. The aircraft photographed Soviet missile sites, military airfields, and nuclear facilities. For years, it operated beyond the reach of enemy fighters. But technology never stands still. Neither did America's adversaries. The Soviet Union quickly developed more advanced surface-to-air missiles. Suddenly, the U-2 was no longer untouchable. Then, on the 1st of May, 1960, everything changed. An American U-2 piloted by Francis Gary Powers was shot down deep inside Soviet territory. The incident became an international crisis. The mission had proven one thing. Flying higher was no longer enough. The next generation of aircraft would have to fly faster, much faster. The birth of the A-12 Oxcart. Back inside Lockheed's legendary Skunk Works, engineers faced an almost impossible challenge: design an aircraft capable of flying faster than a rifle bullet. An aircraft so advanced that even radar would struggle to track it. The result was unlike anything the world had ever seen. It was called the A-12 Oxcart. Every aspect of the aircraft pushed engineering beyond its limits. Its sleek black body was built primarily from titanium, a metal so difficult to manufacture that much of it had to be secretly acquired through complex international supply chains. Its engines generated temperatures hot enough to expand the aircraft's metal skin during flight. In fact, when parked on the ground, small gaps existed between sections of the fuselage. Only after reaching incredible speeds would the aircraft heat up and seal itself. It sounded unbelievable, yet it was real. During testing over the Nevada desert, the A-12 routinely exceeded Mach 3, more than 3 times the speed of sound. At those speeds, crossing an entire state took only minutes. To observers on the ground, the aircraft appeared almost supernatural, a dark object, flying impossibly high, moving faster than anything they had ever witnessed. Many reported seeing glowing discs streaking silently across the evening sky. They believed they had witnessed UFOs. In reality, they had unknowingly observed one of the most classified aircraft ever built, the Blackbird. The success of the A-12 eventually led to another legendary aircraft, the SR-71 Blackbird. Even today, decades after its retirement, the Blackbird remains one of the fastest air-breathing aircraft ever built. Capable of flying above 85,000 feet, and faster than Mach 3.2, it could outrun missiles simply by accelerating. Pilots often joked that if a missile was launched, their emergency procedure was surprisingly simple: push the throttles forward and fly faster. The Blackbird represented the very edge of aerospace engineering. Much of its testing occurred right here, at Area 51. Every successful flight added another layer to the base's growing reputation. Locals reported strange sounds, unusual lights, aircraft with shapes unlike anything seen before. Without knowing they were witnessing secret military technology, many concluded there could only be one explanation: visitors from another world, the invisible aircraft. But perhaps the most revolutionary project of all arrived during the 1970s. Until then, aircraft designers focused on speed, engine power, altitude. Now, they pursued something entirely different: invisibility, not to the human eye, but to radar. For decades, military planners believed stealth was impossible. Every aircraft reflected radar signals. Every aircraft could eventually be detected. Then engineers made a remarkable discovery. The shape of an aircraft could dramatically reduce the amount of radar energy reflected back to enemy systems. Instead of smooth curves, they designed sharp angles, flat surfaces, unusual geometry. The result looked less like an aeroplane and more like something from science fiction. This secret project eventually became the F-117 Nighthawk, when secrets become legends. Throughout the 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s, Area 51 became the birthplace of aircraft decades ahead of anything publicly known. The UFO boom. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, Area 51 became a global icon. Books filled bookstore shelves. Television documentaries explored every imaginable theory. Hollywood embraced the mystery. Films portrayed secret underground laboratories, captured alien visitors, and advanced spacecraft hidden beneath the desert. Popular culture transformed Area 51 into something far greater than a military installation. It became a symbol of unanswered questions. Thousands of tourists traveled to Nevada, hoping to witness something extraordinary. At night, people gathered along public roads with cameras and telescopes. Sometimes, they saw lights moving silently across the desert sky. Videos spread across the internet. Many were labeled as UFOs. Others were later identified as military aircraft, satellites, or natural atmospheric phenomena. Still, not every sighting could be immediately explained. And for believers, that uncertainty kept the mystery alive. The Pentagon and UAPs. In recent years, public interest in unidentified objects has grown once again. The United States Department of Defense has acknowledged investigating reports of what it now calls unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs. Several military videos showing unusual objects have been officially released. However, government officials have repeatedly stated that these videos do not demonstrate confirmed extraterrestrial technology. Most remain unexplained due to limited information, not because they have been identified as alien spacecraft. That distinction is important. An unexplained object is not automatically an alien object. Even so, every new headline reignites public fascination. And because Area 51 has become synonymous with secrecy, many people continue connecting every unexplained sighting back to the Nevada desert. But perhaps the greatest mystery surrounding Area 51 was never about aliens at all. It was the government's refusal to admit the base even existed. For nearly 60 years, official silence transformed an ordinary military installation into a global legend. Then, in 2013, everything changed. For the first time in history, the United States government publicly acknowledged that Area 51 was real, but the documents they released raised almost as many questions as they answered. For nearly 6 decades, Area 51 officially did not exist. Pilots flew there, scientists worked there, thousands of military personnel passed through its gates. Yet if anyone asked the United States government, the answer was always the same: no comment. The silence became part of the mystery. People assumed that if officials refused to acknowledge the base, they must be hiding something extraordinary. But in August 2013, that silence finally ended. Following a Freedom of Information Act request, the Central Intelligence Agency released declassified documents describing the history of the U-2 spy plane program. Hidden within hundreds of pages was something remarkable. For the very first time, the CIA publicly acknowledged the existence of Area 51. The documents revealed that the remote base had been established in 1955, not to study alien spacecraft, but to test one of the most advanced reconnaissance aircraft ever built, the U-2. The files also explained why so many UFO reports had emerged during the 1950s and 1960s. Commercial aircraft of the time typically flew below 20,000 feet. The U-2 routinely operated above 60,000 feet. Its silver wings reflected sunlight long after sunset, appearing as brilliant lights in the evening sky. Pilots reported seeing glowing objects. Civilians described mysterious aircraft. Military officials couldn't reveal the truth, because doing so would expose one of America's most important Cold War secrets. Ironically, the government's attempt to protect classified technology helped create one of history's greatest UFO legends. by the 21st century. Area 51 had become more than a military installation. It had become a cultural phenomenon. Its fences, its warning signs, and its secrecy made it irresistible to curious minds. Then, in 2019, a joke on the internet became an international headline. A Facebook event appeared online with an unusual invitation. "Storm Area 51, they can't stop all of us." The idea was simple. If enough people ran towards the base at the same time, security couldn't stop everyone. It was intended as humor. Within days, millions of people clicked "Going." News organizations around the world covered the story. Government officials issued warnings. The U.S. Air Force reminded the public that Area 51 remained an active military installation, and that trespassers would be dealt with accordingly. As the date approached, thousands of visitors traveled to the small Nevada towns nearest the base. Some wore alien costumes. Others held signs reading, "Take me to your leader." Music festivals were organized. Food stalls appeared. Local businesses welcomed the unexpected tourists. When the day finally arrived, only a small number of people approached the security gates. No mass invasion occurred. No fences were breached. The event ended peacefully. But it demonstrated something remarkable. More than 70 years after its creation, Area 51 still captured the imagination of millions. So, what really happens inside Area 51 today? The honest answer is that no one outside the classified programs knows for certain. Satellite imagery reveals expanding facilities, new hangars, additional runways, large maintenance buildings. Experts believe the base continues to test advanced military technologies, experimental aircraft, stealth systems, autonomous drones, electronic warfare platforms, and perhaps technologies that remain years ahead of anything publicly acknowledged. History has shown that many aircraft first flown at Area 51 remained secret for decades. By the time they were officially revealed, they were often already being replaced by something newer. That cycle continues today. What is tested inside those fences may not become public knowledge for many years, and perhaps that is exactly the point. Area 51 exists. That is no longer a mystery. Its role in developing some of the world's most advanced military aircraft is supported by official documents. Its extreme security is real. Its restricted airspace is real. Its history of classified research is real. But what about alien spacecraft, recovered extraterrestrial technology, hidden underground laboratories? Despite decades of speculation, no publicly verified evidence has confirmed these claims. That does not stop the stories, nor does it end the fascination, because mysteries thrive where answers are incomplete, and few places on Earth have remained as secretive for as long as Area 51.